Have you ever felt like everything and everyone around you is slowly disappearing from your life, as if a silent force is pulling you away from the people, places, and routines you once held dear? One day you're surrounded by laughter, by company, by the noise of the world, and the next, silence. Friends stop calling. Events don't excite you anymore. Your phone barely lights up, and when it does, it's not the messages you used to get. You try to understand it, to grasp why the universe suddenly feels quieter, colder, more distant. You feel like something's wrong with you. But what if this shift, this strange, unexplainable distance, wasn't a punishment, but a divine invitation? What if your solitude isn't loneliness, but a space being carved out just for you and your Creator? There is something powerful that happens when Allah chooses to prepare a soul for something greater. Before the revelation descended upon the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he was pulled into seclusion. He didn't know why, but his heart couldn't bear the chaos around him. He withdrew to the cave of Hira, far from the noise of Makkah, and it was there, in silence, in stillness, in isolation, that the light of revelation touched his soul. That wasn't a coincidence. That was divine orchestration. And the same may be happening to you. You're not being punished. You're being purified. You're not being forgotten. You're being remembered. When everything that once distracted you fades, that's when your soul begins to listen. That's when your heart becomes quiet enough to hear guidance that noise always drowned out. Allah removes the crowd before He reveals the crown. He separates before He elevates. And when you feel disconnected from the world, it may be because you are being connected to something far greater than the world could ever offer. But this season of solitude is not easy. It can be painful. It feels like grief. Grief for the version of life you once knew. You mourn friendships, routines, even hobbies that no longer spark joy. You question why people are changing, why nothing feels familiar, why your heart feels restless in places it once felt alive. You wonder if you're the problem, if maybe you're just not trying hard enough. But here's the truth. This is not about rejection. It's about redirection. You're being guided to walk alone for a while, not because you're unloved, but because your journey now requires a deeper connection, one that cannot be formed in the noise of the crowd. Some of the most transformative conversations you'll ever have will be in the silence of your room, with your forehead against the prayer mat, whispering to the one who never left your side. That stillness, that aching silence, is the soil where clarity grows. Don't fight the quiet. Don't resist the distance. Let it shape you. Every prophet went through a period of isolation before their mission began. They were tested in solitude so they could be strengthened in spirit. Maybe your current season is not a detour, but a divine preparation. Maybe you're not being kept away from the world, but being brought closer to your purpose. The world rushes by, full of distractions, full of noise, but the chosen ones, they pause, they reflect, they feel the shift, they sense the change, and they embrace the silence, knowing that when Allah wants to speak to your heart, He often removes every other voice from your life. So if life has pulled you into solitude, let it. Something greater is being prepared for you, something sacred. And only those who walk through the quiet will be ready when it arrives. And then there are those moments when it's not just isolation, but delay. When you're not only alone, but also waiting. Waiting for the prayer to be answered. Waiting for the job offer that never came. Waiting for the door that stayed shut no matter how many times you knocked. You gave it your best. You made dua with sincerity. You stayed hopeful. But the silence after all your effort begins to feel deafening. You start to wonder if Allah has turned away from you. You see others getting what they want with ease, relationships flourishing, dreams being fulfilled, timelines that seem to work like clockwork, while you're stuck in this endless loop of effort with no result. It hurts. It confuses you. You question your worth. You question your dua. and sometimes you even question your faith. But what if the delay is not a denial? What if it's not an unanswered prayer, but a mercy disguised as waiting? The reality is that we often ask for things based on what we know, while Allah withholds them based on what He knows. He sees beyond the surface. He sees the ripple effect. That job you wanted. It might have looked perfect on paper, but perhaps the environment would have crushed your spirit. That person you prayed for. Maybe their presence in your life would have taken you further from Allah instead of closer. That opportunity you chased. Perhaps it would have inflated your ego and dimmed your light. Allah knows what we do not. And sometimes, His greatest form of protection is in the doors He never opens. Think back to your past. How many times did something not work out, and at the time it broke you? You couldn't understand why things fell apart. But then, months or years later, you looked back and said, Alhamdulillah, because now you can see what you couldn't then. Now you realize you were being shielded, you were being saved, you were being redirected towards something far better. Allah doesn't delay to torture you. He delays because He's still writing the ending, and His endings are worth the wait. But it takes faith to wait well. It takes sabr to believe in the unseen, to trust that when nothing makes sense, Allah's wisdom still holds everything in place. Most people grow impatient. They rush, they settle, they force doors open that were meant to stay shut, and when they do, they carry the consequences. But those who trust, who surrender, who say Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil, Allah is sufficient for me, and He is the best disposer of affairs, they walk a different path, a path of peace, a path of protection. So the next time a door remains closed, ask not, why didn't this happen for me? But, what is Allah protecting me from? The rejection might be a redirection. The delay might be preparation. And the thing you've been praying for, if it's good for you, it will come. If it's not, Allah will replace it with something far better. Because when He finally gives, He gives in ways that leave no doubt. You won't have to chase it. You won't have to question it. It will fit. It will align. It will be yours. And it will bring you closer to Him. Don't be discouraged by the silence. Don't measure Allah's love by the speed of His answers. His love is in the protection. His love is in the wisdom. And His love is in every delayed blessing that arrives right on time. You are not being punished. You are being preserved. Trust the delay, and you will find that what's waiting on the other side was always worth every second of patience. Some people walk through life wearing smiles that hide storms. They laugh with others, share stories, and carry on like everything's fine. But deep within them lies a weight they never talk about. Pain from the past, wounds that never fully healed, silent battles fought in the corners of their soul. And somehow, these people always find their way to you. It could be someone you just met, someone who should have no reason to trust you. And yet, they open up. They tell you things they've never told anyone. Their voice trembles as they share their stories. Their eyes look to you as if they've been searching for someone like you all along. And you sit there wondering, why does this always happen? Why do people gravitate towards me when they're hurting? Why do I become the safe place when I'm barely holding myself together? What you may not realize is that this is not by chance. Allah places in this world certain souls who are made to be vessels of comfort, silent healers whose presence alone brings peace. You don't need a title or a certificate or recognition. You don't need to know all the answers. Sometimes just being able to listen without judgment is more powerful than anything else. You might not see it in yourself, but others do. They feel the light you carry, the calm in your voice, the sincerity in your heart. And because you've tasted pain, you know how to hold someone else's. Because you've endured suffering, you don't dismiss the suffering of others. Allah has softened your heart through experience, so that you may soften the world around you. But let's be honest, it's heavy, it's draining. You listen to everyone's problems, You carry the weight of people's secrets. You offer your shoulder again and again. But when the night falls and everyone goes home, who do you turn to? Who carries your pain? Who listens to you when you're the one breaking? It can feel lonely, being the strong one, being the understanding one, being the person others rely on. You might sit in your room, holding back tears, wondering if anyone even sees what you're going through. You may feel invisible, like your struggles don't matter, because you're always expected to be okay. And that's where the danger lies. When you give so much of your heart to others that you forget to refill your own. Even the Prophet Muhammad, the most beloved of Allah, the mercy to the worlds, carried the burdens of others. People came to him with their fears, their sorrows, their sins. He embraced them with compassion, with love, with wisdom. But he too had moments of sadness. He too turned to the one who never burdens without reason. He stood in prayer until his feet swelled, not just for himself, but for his ummah. And in those quiet hours of the night, he recharged his heart with the remembrance of Allah. So if you are someone who comforts others, if you are someone who carries more than most, know this: you must return to the source. The gift Allah placed in you to heal others must also be protected by seeking healing for yourself. Don't let your giving become your breaking. Take time to be still. Make time to talk to Allah about what you've been absorbing. Sit in sujood and pour your heart out, not just for those you love, but for yourself. You were given a beautiful role, but it doesn't mean you have to suffer in silence. Even healers need healing. Even strong hearts need refuge, and your refuge will always be with the one who gave you the strength in the first place. Allah didn't choose you for this role because you're unbreakable. He chose you because your brokenness became a bridge to others. Your cracks let the light through, and your ability to love others through their pain is a sign that He loves you through yours. And then there are moments, rare, unexplainable moments, when something happens that shakes your soul to its core. You might be going about your normal day, distracted, busy, maybe even numb, and then suddenly, a verse, a line, a single sentence hits you like a thunderbolt. Everything around you fades, and for a few seconds, it's just you and the weight of that realization. Sometimes it comes in the form of pain, a loss, a betrayal, a moment that knocks the wind out of you. Sometimes it's beauty that overwhelms you, a powerful reminder, a prayer whispered with sincerity, a tearful prostration in the middle of the night. Whatever the form, something inside you shifts. The world no longer looks the same. Your heart, once hardened or distracted, begins to tremble. These moments are not random. They are divine wake-up calls, custom designed by the one who knows exactly how to reach your heart. They are Allah's mercy in motion, because He knows when you've gone too long without remembering what truly matters. He knows how easy it is to get caught up in the dunya, in chasing goals, pleasing people, fulfilling expectations. And so, when your soul begins to drift, He sends you a sign. Not just once, but again and again, until it finally shakes you enough to pause, to reflect, to ask yourself, what am I doing with my life? Sometimes that moment of awakening comes through heartbreak. You lose something, or someone, you thought you couldn't live without. You cry, you question, you feel like everything is falling apart. But in that emptiness, in that silence that follows the storm, something miraculous happens. You begin to see clearly. You begin to hear what you had been ignoring. You begin to feel again. And often, for the first time in a long time, you turn to Allah. Not out of routine, but out of desperation, out of longing, out of need. And that moment becomes the beginning of your return. That moment becomes the moment that changes everything. Other times the awakening is subtle. You're scrolling through your phone like usual, and a clip appears. A reminder, a quote, a verse. something so small, but it hits you in a way that nothing else did. You stop. You stare. Tears rise unexpectedly. Your soul, buried under distractions and denial, suddenly begins to stir. It's as if Allah whispered something directly to your heart, something that bypassed your mind and went straight to the core of who you are. And for the first time in a long time, you feel alive. Not because the pain is gone, but because the veil is lifting. But here's the reality. Most people ignore these moments. They dismiss them. They scroll past. They silence the trembling in their heart because it's uncomfortable. Because change is hard. Because answering the call means leaving behind parts of themselves they're not ready to let go of. But those who are truly chosen, those who are being called for something greater, they listen. They pause. They ask, "What is Allah trying to show me? And more importantly, what must I do now?" When your soul is shaken, don't run from it. Sit with it. Let it break you open. Let it lead you back to your Creator. These moments are rare, and if you ignore them long enough, they may stop coming. That's the scariest part. A heart that keeps turning away can eventually become sealed. The guilt disappears, the yearning fades, and you begin to live with spiritual numbness, no longer moved by the truth, no longer stirred by what used to shake you. That's not peace. That's a warning. So if your heart still trembles, even now, even just a little, cherish it, feed it, act on it, make dua, pray, even if it's just 2 rak'ahs. Make a small change, even if it's just 1 step. Don't let the moment pass without anchoring it in action. Because when Allah shakes your soul, it's not just to make you feel, it's to make you rise. He's calling you, not to perfection, but to sincerity. Not to overnight transformation, but to conscious return. These are the signs of His love. These are the whispers of mercy that echo in the hearts of the chosen. And if you feel it, if you've ever experienced even one moment like this, know this: you are not forgotten. You are being called back. And the only question left is, will you answer? Or will you let your heart fall back asleep? It starts as something small, barely noticeable. You hear the same advice 3 times in 1 week, from 3 different people who don't even know each other. You keep seeing the same verse from the Quran appear on your screen, on a post, on a page, even in a book you hadn't planned to open. A certain number keeps showing up, a phrase keeps echoing in different places, or a life situation keeps repeating with eerie familiarity. At first you brush it off, just a coincidence, you tell yourself. But then it happens again, and again, and again. And slowly, something inside you begins to stir. Your heart begins to ask questions your mind is afraid to entertain. What if this is not random? What if these patterns are not meaningless? What if Allah is trying to show me something I'm refusing to see? Allah is Al-Latif, the subtle, the gentle, the one who communicates not just through words, but through signs. When He wants to guide a person, He doesn't always send thunder or lightning. Sometimes He sends repetition. Not because He needs to, but because we're so easily distracted, so often forgetful, so lost in our own pace of life that we miss the whispers of guidance. And so, He repeats it over and over. Through reminders, through experiences, through recurring challenges, through people you meet, verses you hear, emotions you feel at seemingly insignificant moments. It's all part of the same divine pattern, but only those who pause and reflect will truly recognize it. Look at the natural world around you. Allah built everything in cycles, in rhythms, in patterns. The rising and setting of the sun, the waxing and waning of the moon, the tides of the sea, the turning of seasons, the beating of your own heart. Nothing in creation is without structure. Nothing is random. So why would the signs in your life be any different? If you keep encountering the same struggle, Maybe it's not bad luck. Maybe it's a test you haven't passed yet. If you keep falling into the same sin, the same toxic relationship, the same emotional pit, maybe it's because the lesson still remains unlearned. Allah, in His mercy, doesn't abandon you when you miss the signs. He repeats them, hoping that this time your heart will finally wake up. But most people don't look that deep. They see the pattern, but they don't connect the dots. They keep asking, why does this keep happening to me? Instead of asking, what is Allah trying to teach me through this? They blame others, blame circumstances, blame timing, but they never pause long enough to say, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the one who needs to grow. That's why the same trials keep coming back. The same emotional pain, the same failures, the same emptiness. Because until the inner transformation happens, the outer story will keep repeating itself. Life is a classroom, and the divine curriculum never moves on until the lesson is absorbed. There was once a woman who constantly found herself betrayed in friendships. Every time she gave her trust, it was broken. Every time she tried to belong, she was pushed aside. It left her bitter, confused, wondering what she had done wrong. Then one day, she saw a reminder. When Allah wants you to rely solely on Him, He removes your reliance on others. And in that moment, everything clicked. Her heart softened. She realized her pain had purpose. The lesson wasn't about the friends. It was about her misplaced trust. From that point forward, she changed, not just in who she allowed into her life, but in how she turned to Allah first before anyone else. And that single realization shifted the entire course of her life. So pay attention. What keeps repeating in your life? What are the patterns trying to tell you? What signs have you been ignoring? Because once you stop brushing them off, once you open your heart to divine communication, everything begins to make sense. Allah has been speaking to you the whole time, not with a voice you hear, but with experiences you live. And when you finally start listening, life no longer feels like chaos. It begins to feel like guidance. You begin to see the unseen threads weaving your story together. You begin to realize you were never lost. You were being led. And then there's a different kind of knowing, a feeling that runs so deep it's hard to put into words. You look at your life and feel it. This isn't it. This can't be all there is. You try to enjoy what others enjoy. You follow the routines. You smile at the right times. You take part in the world's rhythm. But something always feels off, like you're pretending, like you're performing in a play that everyone else believes in, but your heart knows it's just a stage. You feel like you're meant for something bigger, something higher, deeper, more meaningful. Not in an arrogant way, not for fame or applause, but in a soul-level way, a hunger for truth, a thirst for purpose, a quiet voice that keeps whispering, "This isn't home." That feeling is not an accident. It's a seed planted by Allah. He doesn't create every soul the same. Some are meant to live ordinary lives, and that is beautiful in its own way. But others, He chooses for something extraordinary, something sacred. And the first sign is that holy restlessness you feel, that quiet rebellion in your spirit that refuses to accept shallow living. The Prophet Muhammad felt it long before revelation. He couldn't bring himself to join in the corruption around him. He didn't enjoy the idol worship, the immoral practices, the hollow rituals. So he walked away. He climbed the mountain. He sat in silence. He searched. That discomfort he felt was not depression. It was divine preparation. And you may be feeling the same thing now. You look around and feel disconnected. Everyone seems so content chasing wealth, chasing trends, chasing likes and validation. But your heart aches. Not because you're ungrateful, but because your soul is seeking something real. That ache is guidance. That emptiness is calling. And the more you try to fill it with the world, the louder it grows. Because it was never meant to be filled with anything but Allah. But here's what many people do wrong. They feel this calling and ignore it. They drown it in distractions. They silence it with entertainment. They convince themselves that something's wrong with them, instead of realizing that something's been made right. If you feel like you're meant for more, it's because you are. If you feel like your soul is restless, it's because it remembers a home it hasn't reached yet. But the feeling is not enough. The call means nothing if you don't respond. There are countless people who felt inspired at one point. They felt the fire. They wanted to change the world. But they got tired. They got scared. They let doubt whisper louder than destiny. And now they live with regret, haunted by the echo of what could have been. Don't be one of them. Don't let that light inside you die. Protect it. Feed it. Nurture it with prayer, with purpose, with people who remind you of Allah. Take one step, just one, and Allah will open doors you never imagined. He doesn't call a heart unless He's prepared a path for it. You just have to walk it. And maybe the most beautiful sign of all is the one you felt again and again, but never fully understood. The pull. The invisible thread that keeps tugging at your soul, no matter how far you stray. You could be drowning in mistakes, surrounded by distractions, lost in the illusions of this world. But somehow, some way, something always pulls you back. A hardship that brings you to your knees. A verse that breaks through the fog. A tear in sujood that catches you off guard. You drift, but you always come back. That's not normal. That's not accidental. That's divine love. Because Allah gives the dunya to those He loves, and to those He doesn't. But He only gives faith, only gives return, only gives that tug on the heart, to those He wants near, the ones He's chosen, the ones He hasn't given up on. There are people who live their whole lives without feeling guilty for sin, without once missing Allah. But you feel it. You feel the ache of distance. You feel the loss of connection. And that feeling, as painful as it is proof that your heart is still alive, that your soul still remembers Him, that He still wants you. But don't ignore the pull. Because if you silence it long enough, it starts to fade. The guilt goes away. The longing disappears. The heart hardens. And soon the path back becomes harder to find. Allah doesn't force the door open. He knocks. And if you answer, He comes running. But if you ignore it over and over, He may stop knocking. There was once a man who used to cry every time he missed a prayer. It hurt him. But over time he stopped caring. His heart stopped breaking. That's the danger. Not sin itself, but the loss of sensitivity to sin. So if you still feel the pull, don't waste it. Run with it. Turn back now. Not because you're perfect, but because you're still being called. That's the greatest honor of all, to be wanted by Allah, to be chased by mercy, to be remembered by the one who never forgets. If these signs have touched something inside you, it's not coincidence, it's calling, it's invitation. The question now is, will you rise, or will you let it fade like so many others have? This is your sign, this is your chance, and it may not come again.